Chapter 2 Coffee. The air crackled with tension as Nishiki Nishio's sharp gaze bore into Kin Kaneki, his scrutiny unrelenting. You've been buying an awful lot of coffee lately, he observed, his voice tinged with suspicion. Never pinned you for a ghoul. Kaneki shifted uncomfortably under Nishiki's piercing stare, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end as he sensed the growing hostility in the air. I, I just like coffee, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Only one of your eyes is red, he said as he walked towards Kaneki. It was only then that Kaneki got a good look at the beast's eyes himself. They were the same as his. Jet, ebony black with red veins spreading outwards from the also red, small but thick pupil. That's disgusting, he spat. With a menacing stretch of his neck, tilting his head to the left with a few satisfying clicks. Nishiki's demeanor shifted. His expression hardened as he moved closer to Kaneki, cornering him against the alley wall. You're a ghoul, aren't you? He growled. A lightning flash in his right hand was slowly but surely strangling Kaneki's poor innocent neck. Stay out of my territory, Nishiki said, tightening around Kaneki's throat. Panicked, he grasped for air, his eyes wide with fear as he struggled to comprehend the situation unfolding before him. I'm sorry, he managed to choke out, his voice hoarse with desperation. I didn't know this was your territory. Before the confrontation could escalate further, a shadowy figure, sitting cuddling her knees, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. This isn't your feeding ground, Nishiki, she asserted, her tone firm and unwavering. Nishiki's lips curled into a sneer as he glared at the woman. Tuka, you should know by now. Rise is dead, he retorted, his voice dripping with contempt. This space was mine anyway, until she showed up. The two ghouls locked eyes, their words a sharp contrast to the quiet alley around them as they locked eyes. Kaneki could feel the tension and power in the air. In a sudden burst of motion, Tuka and Nishiki charged at each other, their movements fluid and precise as they engaged in a fierce brawl. But despite Nishiki's strength, it was Tuka who emerged victorious, her blows swift and decisive. Tuka, Kirishima, and Nishiki Nishio clashed in the dimly lit alleyway, the moonlight casting eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. The narrow space confines their movements, forcing them into an intense close-quarters battle. Tuka, with her dark hair and piercing blue eyes, moves with a deadly grace. Her lithe form darts in and out of the shadows, utilizing her speed to her advantage. Her expression is a mixture of fierce determination and cold fury, every muscle in her body tensed for the next strike. She throws a swift punch at Nishiki, her knuckles aimed for his jaw. Nishiki, tall and lean, meets her with a smirk. His eyes sharp and calculating track every movement. He blocks her punch with his forearm and counters with a powerful kick. His movements more methodical and controlled. The voice of his kick sends a shockwave through the ground, the air around him buzzing with the intensity of his attack. Kaneki noticed the sweat on their brows and the raw determination in their eyes. Tuka feints to the left, then spins, her legs sweeping low to knock Nishiki off balance. He jumps back in time, his feet skimming the ground as he recovers. He lunges forward, aiming a series of rapid punches at her midsection. Tuka blocks most of them, but a few connect. Driving the air from her lungs, she grits her teeth and retaliates with a vicious uppercut that snaps Nishiki's head back. They circle each other, breathing heavily, eyes locked in a deadly stare. The tension between them is palpable, each one refusing to back down. Tuka launches herself at Nishiki, her fist flying in a fury of punches and elbows. Nishiki deflects and counters with a brutal knee to her ribs, followed by a quick jab to her side. Blood drips onto the ground, but Tuka doesn't flinch. Instead, she presses the attack, her movements becoming even more aggressive. She lands a solid punch to Nishiki's temple, causing him to stagger. Nishiki responds with a spinning kick that catches her off guard, sending her crashing into a pile of discarded crates. She quickly scrambles to her feet, wiping blood from her mouth, her eyes blazing with resolve. Nishiki charges at her, but she sidesteps, using his momentum against him. She grabs his arm and flips him over her shoulder, slamming him onto the pavement. The impact reverberates through the alleyway, but Nishiki rolls away, getting back on his feet almost immediately. As the dust settled and the echoes of their clash faded into the night, Kaneki found himself grappling with newfound revelations. What are these monsters? He murmured, his voice filled with uncertainty. Tuka turned to him, her expression softening with understanding. Ghouls are creatures without connection, she explained, her voice tinged with sadness. No concepts, no morals, no order. The ghoul world is the worst. But Kaneki refused to succumb to despair. Clinging to his humanity with every fiber of his being, I won't eat humans, he declared, his voice trembling yet forceful and determined. Tuka's gaze softened, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes as she offered him help in the only way she knew how, by attempting to force feed him meat. Reluctantly, Kaneki swallowed, the guilt weighing heavy on his heart as he grappled with the consequences of his actions. I'm not like them, he whispered, his voice barely above a whisper. I won't become a monster. The alleyway was shrouded in darkness, the only illumination coming from the flickering streetlights above. Tuka Kirishima's grip tightened around Ken Kaneki's throat as she slammed him against the cold, unforgiving wall. You're not human, she spat, her voice dripping with venom as she stared into Kaneki's wide, mismatched, panicked eyes. Your body should be injured, yet you're unscathed. You're a ghoul. Kaneki's heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to comprehend the gravity of Tuka's words. But I can't be, he protested weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Tuka's gaze softened, a hint of pity in her eyes as she regarded Kaneki. You don't belong among humans or ghouls, she declared, her tone final. If you're determined to stick to the human side, then starve yourself. But be warned, starvation for a ghoul is hell. You'll end up acting on instinct if you go hungry. As her words sank in, Kaneki felt a chill run down his spine. Alone and scared, he could only watch as Tuka disappeared into the night, leaving him to grapple with his newfound reality. His phone buzzed with a message from Hiroyoshi Nagachika, offering him the Asian history notes once again. With a heavy heart, Kaneki realized that there was still one place where he belonged, with Hyde at Kame University. Days passed, and Kaneki returned to school, his eye patched a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within him. The piece of human meat Tuka had given him had made him feel better, but the hunger still gnawed at his insides. As he walked through the crowded halls, Kaneki was approached by Hyde, who eagerly filled him in on the upcoming school festival. You should join the planning committee, Hyde suggested, his excitement palpable. But Kaneki hesitated, his gaze flickering with uncertainty. I'm not used to being around crowds, he admitted, his voice tinged with anxiety. Hyde frowned, his brow furrowing in concern as he studied his friend's pale complexion. You haven't been eating much, he observed, his tone gentle yet perceptive. Kaneki's heart clenched with guilt at Hyde's words, the weight of his secret threatening to crush him. If I become a ghoul someday, he thought to himself, Hyde and I won't be able to walk alongside each other anymore. Their errand led them to Nishiki Nishio's room, where they unwittingly interrupted an intimate moment between Nishiki and his girlfriend. Nishiki was fondling Kimi's breast. Kimi Nishino squealed and ran out. Sorry, Hyde apologized sheepishly, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Nishiki's eyes narrowed as he regarded Kaneki, a flicker of hostility dancing in their depths. Respect your elders, kid, he warned, his tone sharp. As Hyde began introducing Kaneki to Nishiki, Kaneki couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of his stomach. The strong aroma of coffee in the room sent a shiver down his spine, and he couldn't help but wonder if he had encountered Nishiki before on the feeding ground. Well, Hyde will have to go and get the CD for the festival, Nishiki said with a slight grin. He then looks Kaneki straight in the eyes and says, Together. I'll come too, Kaneki says with a bit of newfound confidence. He wonders if that's his new ghoul body talking. Fine, the more the merrier, Nishiki jokes as he hauls himself off the office chair. Nishiki, ever the gracious host, treated them to taiyaki, a Japanese fish-shaped cake. This small gesture of hospitality did not go unnoticed by Kaneki. I'll save mine for later, he said, tucking the treat away in his jacket pocket. Curiously, Nishiki took the taiyaki and took a massive bite of it, complete with ums and ahs. Was he really not a ghoul after all? But as they continued their journey, Kaneki couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of his stomach. The walk took a sinister turn as Nishiki led them into a secluded alley, his intentions becoming clear as he cornered the two boys with a cruel smirk. With a swift kick, Nishiki rendered Hyde unconscious, his body crumpling to the ground without a sound. Kaneki tensed his eyes, narrowing as he faced his adversary. You're different from the ghouls, aren't you? Nishiki taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. But deep down, you're just like us. Anger flared within Kaneki as Nishiki's words struck a nerve. I'll never be like you, he declared, his voice steely with determination. But Nishiki's response was swift and brutal, his foot connecting with Hyde's prone form as Kaneki watched in horror. The sight of his friend being treated so callously fueled Kaneki's rage, his fist clenching as he prepared to fight back against the monster before him. You're planning to eat Hyde, aren't you? Nishiki sneered, his gaze cold and calculating as he locked eyes with Kaneki. Kaneki's fist clenched at his sides, his patience wearing thin as he struggled to contain his rising anger. Stop thinking of my friend as a wild animal you've caught, he snapped, his voice laced with frustration. But Nishiki was unfazed, a cruel smirk playing at the corners of his lips as he delivered a swift kick to Kaneki's abdomen. You're just a weakling, he taunted, his tone dripping with disdain. A woman attacking with your bag. Kaneki gritted his teeth in frustration, his hands shaking with suppressed rage as he fought to keep his emotions in check. If I went all out, Nishiki continued, his voice dripping with arrogance, not even Tuka or Yomo could defeat me. But as Nishiki's tirade continued, Kaneki's thoughts turned to his friend, Hideyoshi Nagachika. What do you really think of Hyde? He demanded, his voice tinged with desperation. Nishiki's expression softened slightly, a hint of irritation flashing in his eyes. He's annoying, he admitted grudgingly, with his idiotic clothes and, oh God, his jokes. But despite his annoyance, Nishiki acknowledged Hyde's keen perceptiveness, his words carrying a begrudging respect for Kaneki's friends. He's always been observant, Nishiki conceded, unlike the other college students. Kaneki's mind raced as he processed Nishiki's words, his thoughts swirling with confusion and disbelief. Hyde didn't want me to come, he realized, his heart sinking at the revelation. He sensed Nishiki's intentions all along. As Nishiki ripped off Kaneki's eye patch, Kaneki's heart pounded in his chest, his fear threatening to consume him. You'd rather kill Hyde than let your true identity be revealed. Nishiki sneered, his words cutting through the silence like a blade. With a roar of fury, Kaneki lunged at Nishiki, his movements fueled by a primal rage that burned deep within him. But Nishiki was ready, his reflexes lightning fast as he deftly dodged Kaneki's attacks. As Kaneki stumbled back, his mind reeling with confusion and doubt, he realized the truth. He was hungry, hungry for vengeance, hungry for justice, and above all, hungry for the strength to protect those he cared about. As the two ghouls faced off, Tuka Kirishima's voice echoed in the darkness as she spoke on her cell phone, her words carrying a sense of urgency. I'll be there shortly, she informed Rinji Yomo, her tone indicating that she had business to attend to, likely involving Kin Kaneki. Eventually, Nishiki beats Kaneki down to the ground. He then walks his way back to Hyde. Nishio starts slamming his foot down onto Hideyoshi's face, hard. Blood drools down Kaneki's best friend's head. Kaneki had had enough. I can't leave my best friend, His eyes left turned black and red into what the CCG dubs a Kakugan. Kaneki's heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. He felt a surge of power coursing through his veins. The air crackled with tension as Nishiki Nishio, his adversary, closed in for the attack. In that moment of desperation, Kaneki's instincts took over, his body reacting on pure instinct. A sensation unlike anything he had ever felt before washed over him, a primal force awakening deep within his being. I can't leave my best friend to die. With a primal roar, Kaneki unleashed his Kagune, the ghastly appendage erupting from his back in a flurry of dark energy. It was unfurled behind him like a twisted, grotesque wing, its razor-sharp edges glinting in the dim light of the alley. No, I won't let that happen. The sight of his own transformation filled Kaneki with a mixture of awe and horror. He could feel the raw power coursing through him, his senses heightened to an almost unbearable degree. But amidst the chaos and confusion, one thought burned bright in Kaneki's mind. He had to hide. The only person who had made his life worthwhile. With newfound resolve, Kaneki faced his adversary head-on. Nishio's eyes widened in shock as Kaneki's transformation unfolded before him, his confusion evident as he struggled to comprehend the sudden urge of power emanating from his opponent. With a swift and decisive strike, Kaneki impaled Nishio through the gut with his Kagune, the force of the blow sending him staggering backwards. Kaneki then dashed forward and impaled him a second time with the red tendril, and a third, and a fourth. He kept going until Nishiki was ejecting blood from his mouth. He then popped him to the floor like a piece of garbage. Grasping for breath, Nishio stared up at Kaneki in disbelief, his voice trembling as he spoke. You'll kill me if you keep stabbing like that, you idiot, he admitted, his words tinged with fear. As he struggled to make sense of Kaneki's newfound strength, Nishio gaze fell upon the claw-like appendage protruding from Kaneki's body, a chilling realization dawning upon him. Its rise is Kagune, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. But how could someone like you wield such power? But Kaneki's hunger raged on, his senses overwhelmed by the scent of human flesh, emanating from behind him. With a giddy grin, he turned to find Hadayoshi Nagachika, lying unconscious on the ground, his body a tantalizing temptation. Driven by instinct, Kaneki lurched forward, his mind consumed by a hunger so intense that he was unaware of his own actions. But before he could sink his teeth into his friend's flesh, Tuka appeared before him, her presence a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. Move! Kaneki demanded, his voice tinged with desperation. But Tuka stood her ground, her gaze unwavering as she spoke. You'll regret it, she warned, her words carrying a weight of truth. Hunger drowns out reason until all you care about is feeding, even if it means using your friend's life. As Kaneki's vision cleared and he found himself back at Antaiku, his heart pounded in his chest with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Approached by Yoshimura, Kaneki's first concern was for Hyde's well-being, his voice trembling with fear as he asked about his friend. Relieved to hear that Hyde was alive and recovering, Kaneki's mind raced with questions. Why was there blood in my mouth? He asked, his voice laced with confusion. Yoshimura's words struck a chord within him as he explained the truth, that Kaneki had been fed human meat while asleep, to prevent him from harming his friends. Overwhelmed by the weight of his own existence, Kaneki wept bitterly, his tears a testament to his fear of loneliness and uncertainty. But Yoshimura offered him comfort and guidance, reassuring him that he was neither fully human nor fully ghoul, but something in between. I can offer you a job here. I can teach you what it is like to be both human and ghoul.